So that's fun. I like could not put it down, but at the same time, I kind of wish I had DNF'd it. Sucks so much. Here, shut up, my guy, shut up. Well, hello, welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about some friggin' books that I have read recently or DNF'd recently. There are definitely a few of those this time around, as there usually are. All right, the first one up is a collection of short stories, Songs of Love and Death, edited by George R. R. Martin and Gardner Dozois. Yeah, this one I read some of them. I kind of skipped around a little bit. And I read Love Hurts by Jim Butcher, The Marrying Maid by Joe Beverly, Rooftops by Carrie Vaughn. I think I read Hurt Me by M.L.N. Hanover. I read After the Blood by Marjorie M. Liu and realized I had already read that in a collection of short stories just by Marjorie M. Liu. So that's fun. You and You Alone by Jacqueline Carey, which is a novella short story from the Phaedrus trilogy. So that was kind of fun. And then I think that's about when I decided, like, I don't know, because the ones I read, I was just kind of like, okay. And I'm just like, why did I grab this? Short stories are just usually not to my taste, and novellas, short stories, etc. So yeah, it just wasn't for me. I just did not care. I was forcing myself to sit down and read through them. So yeah, and I think I wanted it to be more romantic. The stories that I did read, I mean, and it makes sense. It's called Songs of Love and Death. And it says, cross-genre stories of star-crossed lovers. Heart-wrenching and deliciously dark. Blah, blah, blah. They're full of deadly devotion. Tales of tragedy and romance. And it was mostly just like tragedy. The ones I read were just either scary, dark, horror-esque ones, or just like sad as fuck. But not in a like romantic, like ripping my heart out, like, oh my God, oh, I'm so sad for them. It was just like depressing and just, again, kind of just dark and scary. And that's not my vibe. So I DNF'd. And the next one is Elle's book, actually, a copy of this book from Elle. Ruination by Anthony Reynolds. It's a League of Legends novel. And I really like Arcane, the show. That's all I know of League of Legends. That's literally my only piece of media surrounding League of Legends that I have ever read. And she actually lent this to me a while ago, I think, and I just never picked it up, and I gave it back to her. And then the last time I was over at her house, I grabbed it again and was like, let me try again. And yeah, I finally picked it up, but I DNF'd around 47%. I was really, really digging it in the beginning. I messaged Elle to be like, hey, I started Ruination, and I'm really liking it. Callista, one of the main characters, or the main character, I really, really liked her, and I was vibing with everything that was happening. But as soon as she went off sailing to look for something, I just lost steam with it entirely. I just couldn't get back into it. Even once she stopped sailing around for a time and was like in one place for a bit, I had lost all steam with it. And there's another character named Graal, I don't know. And he's meant to be a villain. And oh my God, I mean, he's well written, I guess, because he sucks so much. I don't know if to me, I guess, I feel like he maybe is a little not as well done as I would have liked, because he felt a little bit like a caricature, like of a mustache twirling villain. I could not stand to be reading his sections. As soon as we got to a section that was going to be his POV, I was shriveling up inside. I was just like, ugh. I hated him so much. He was very, very unlikable in a deeply visceral way for me personally. That combined with just having lost steam with the other parts of the story, I was like, I'm okay. I'm good. Next, I buddy read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez with Robin over at Robin Reads, and tabbed it up quite a bit. I had many, many thoughts. And this one, so it's as you can probably tell from the cover, I always forget what to say shit is. Most of the shit I read is fantasy, or very obviously not fantasy. Contemporary romance, adult contemporary romance. And this is the Part of Your World series Each book is just following a different couple. And in the first book, we followed this girl, Alexis, and in this book, we are following her best friend, Brianna. And it's a fake dating scenario, and that's really all you need to know going into it, I would say. You definitely do not have to have read the first book, Part of Your World, before reading this one. There's going to be little mentions of things that you have no idea about, but it's kind of whatever. The TLDR on this is I really loved these characters. Oh my god. And the dynamic between them just had me like giggling, kicking my feet, just like, like so cute. I can't even stand it. However, the conflict between them stressed me out. Whereas in the first book, I liked the characters. The female main character, though, I liked a lot less than the male main character. I did like their chemistry. I mean, I think Abby Jimenez just writes chemistry and banter and things like that very well. I liked the chemistry between those two characters, but like I loved it here. However, in that book, their main conflict that like caused them to have like a, you know, third act breakup type of thing was just external things for the most part. There was a little bit of lack of communication in that one too, but in a way that like to me, it annoyed me still because I just don't operate like that. So I'm like, you're stupid, just talk. But it was like in a way that I'm like, I kind of get it. Whereas in this, the lack of communication and the misunderstandings, they just jump to conclusions with each other and like assume they know how the other person feels and behave according to their assumptions without like asking like, hey, this is how it seems to me. Is that actually how you feel? Am I just misreading this? Like, we don't have that conversation forever. And it drove me crazy. And towards the end, there's like an added thing to the conflict between them on Brianna's side only that drove me a little crazy. But they're so fucking cute. They're so fucking cute. And I think the kind of conversation around anxiety, the male main character here has anxiety, like social anxiety, and he like gets panic attacks at times. And I personally cannot relate in the slightest to all of that, but I have many friends who can, and I've heard enough people talk about it. It seemed like it was very well done, and it was so sweet seeing how Brianna like understood him also, and like how she handled his anxiety and his panic disorder, and it was just so precious, so precious. And there was just that like talk of compatibility is what I loved about this one. The conversation around like, compatibility fucking matters, and you can have all the butterflies with someone or not, and like that doesn't automatically mean that they're compatible for you, right? Or someone can be really great on paper and just a lovely person and so nice and sweet and everything, where like an outside view might be like, why wouldn't you want to be with them? But if you just don't have that compatibility, that true, genuine, for the most part, no one's ever going to be perfect, of course, and no one's ever going to completely be able to read your mind and your heart. But like as close to that as possible is what you should be shooting for, not just like good enough. And I loved that conversation happening here. And also it annoyed me in parts, again, just because it's so opposite of how I operate, with Brianna in particular dealing with her divorce and realizing that her ex-husband had an affair and the pain that can cause and like the uprooting of your life that a divorce causes. Been there, done that. And just, I don't know, I just process things very, very differently, I think, than a fair amount of people, it seems. Certainly than Brianna. And so there were parts where I was just like, okay, can we move on now? But I think how her like trauma and how her wounds from that and from other things in her past were explained and dealt with, like it made sense. She annoyed the ever-loving fuck out of me sometimes, but like it made sense for her character that she was behaving that way, you know? But yeah, all of their just like not communicating and like, this is how I feel, but like they obviously can't feel like that, duh, right? No way could they possibly feel the same way about me, even though everything about their behavior and their mannerisms and how they talk to me and how they are with me screams that they like me too. But that can't possibly be true. And it just, it annoyed me, but at times it was just funny. And Robin and I were messaging each other like, these two dumb idiots. Like, you clearly love each other, you stupid, stupid bitches. But it was like cute and funny, you know what I mean? It wasn't like so annoying that it brought my rating down or anything like that. I ended up giving this one, I think I actually changed my rating of Part of Your World also, and I gave that 4.25, and I ended up giving this 4.25 as well. I really, really love Abby Jimenez's like chemistry that she writes, and the banter, and like just how cute they are together. Like, it's so cute. But man, I cannot with a lack of communication and like jumping to conclusions about how someone feels and then reacting based on these assumptions you have. Like, I just talk. We're grown-ups. And they're like pushing 40. They're past their mid-30s, I think. And I'm like, grow up, people. But still, great time. 4.25 is quite a high rating for me, especially for contemporary romance. This is one where the first book I don't have a copy of, and I don't think I'll buy one because I just don't think I would reread that. Some of the elements of that one stressed me out to the point of like, ugh. Whereas this one, I could see myself rereading it because even though there were parts that stressed me out, the two main characters they were just too fucking cute together, where I could see myself, and I'm gonna keep it for a little while and not unhaul it. I don't know if I'll ever reread it or feel inclined to reread it, but I could see myself just, if I want, like, I just kind of want to eat up some cute little romantic idiots falling in love and not realizing it, that I could see myself rereading this. We shall see. Next is a historical fantasy with mythological elements, The Wolf and the Whale by Jordanna Max Brodsky. I've had this on my shelves, I think since like 2018. I saw Mara, all those many years ago, talking about it, and I don't even remember what she rated it or exactly what she said about it. Books Like Whoa is who I'm talking about, Mara. But I just remember that she talked about it positively. I don't recall it being like, oh my God, one of my favorites of all time necessarily, but just the way she talked about it positively, and the fact that it has like gods walking among us and like mythological, and it's Inuit and like Norse mythology kind of mixed together a little bit. Very intriguing to me. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I bought it, and it's been chilling for 12 years. It was on my pile of possibilities list for the year. Finally decided to try it out. It's like 530 pages. I want to say 520 some pages. She's a big bitch. All right. And the TLDR on this, I liked the writing itself. Like the writing style I thought was good. Nothing in particular really like irritated me necessarily, but at the same time, I kind of wish I had DNF'd it. I read it in the average amount of time it takes me to read a book. I think this one was like 8 or 9 days it took me to finish it, I want to say. But it felt like such a slog in so many parts. The pacing was just wonky AF for me personally. I think this book could stand to lose at least 150 pages, maybe 200, just like interdispersed, like throughout the book. Just cut out parts of, because there's just whole chunks that just, I'm like, okay, are we still here? And this book has so many 5-star reviews that I saw. But yeah, man, it felt like it covered 100 years, when in reality it covered like there were flashbacks and like time jumps a little bit, but the bulk of like the actual plot that we're following here is like a year or to 2 years of this main character's life. And it felt like 100 years. There's also a romance in here that I just felt like came out of nowhere. It wasn't even that I didn't like it. It just felt random. And it felt like I was meant to be like, oh, this is deeply profound and passionate. And I just was like, wait, what? You guys love each other now? Luckily, it was a pretty small portion of the book. Like, it didn't happen until towards the very end. But like the ending of the book just didn't hold the same kind of emotional weight for me that I think it was supposed to, based on how it seemed I was supposed to feel about this romance. And also, there's a whole thing here. The main character is born female, but she's Inuit, and in her culture, they believe, and I don't know how much of this is the author talks about like kind of taking some liberties with like cultural things or like meshing from different tribes, meshing cultural things together, like for, artistic license, what have you. So I don't know how much of this is like actually Inuit culture, but in this main character's Inuit culture, they believe that, your soul is reborn, like a reincarnation thing. And so when she's born, they believe that her father, who had passed like a few weeks or a few months before, her father's spirit came into her. So they give her his name and raise her as a boy. And they're like, she can choose what she, so she's kind of trans in a sense. They don't have that language for it. And she, you know, wants to be, and then she doesn't know that she's actually female until later on. And she like learns this and is like shocked, and then like just figuring out what to do about this, and like really wanting to prove herself as a Inuit man. And all of this, just, there's a lot of internalized misogyny that she has that, it's like, I suppose it does get addressed towards the end. It kind of does, but something about it just felt off to me. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm sure if I sat down and like analyzed the fuck out of it, did some critical analysis, I could think of it, but just something felt a little off. I don't know. I don't know if I love exactly how it was handled. I'm not trans or gender queer or non-conforming, so I can't really speak to it on a personal level. Maybe that's why I don't have like the words for it. And maybe to someone who can speak to it on a personal level, it wouldn't feel off. Maybe it was done really well. I don't know, something about it just felt a little weird to me, like towards the end. So there's that also. So yeah, I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. Nothing inherently like, oh, this is terrible. Again, well written. I can see why people like it. It's just so slow paced. If you are a reader who enjoys that kind of a very slow paced, getting all up in our head about stuff kind of thing, then you might be someone who gives this 4 or 5 stars. I don't know. I'm just not the reader for this. And by the end, I just was like, I should have DNF'd. Like, next up was a reread, book 2 of the Mages of the Wheel series, Storm and Shield by J.D. Evans. And this is adult fantasy romance. I've talked about it several times on my channel over the years, but it's just, to me, it's such a good blend of fantasy and romance. And each book follows different characters in this world, but like in the first book, we meet the male main character here. We see him a few times, several times, I would say. And then towards the end, I don't know if we see her. We hear about her. We hear about her father for sure. But yeah, anyways, this one is following Aysel and Bashir. Bashir is like the commander of the Sultana's guard. And then Aysel is the daughter of a noble, one of the elders from the other country that the male main character from the first book came from. And they're all refugees now coming over to the Sultana's kingdom. And Aysel is like raised to be a spy, essentially, and like kind of an assassin. She's kind of a badass. And her and Bashir initially, it's kind of a like, it's not enemies to lovers, but it's like not even rivals. They're just like fucking with each other. They very much have like their banter, their dynamic is like pushing each other's buttons, teasing, giving each other a hard time. You know what I mean? But they're also so sweet together, and I love it. I love their dynamic together. I did actually end up giving this one a slightly lower rating on the reread. The first time I read it, I gave it an even 4 stars. I gave it 3.75 on the reread. This series is definitely like one of my, if not my favorite, like fantasy romance series. And I do love the dynamic in this one, like their dynamic together. But on reread, Bashir, the male love interest here, irritated me a lot more. He's just so dogged in his like duty bound, honor bound, just like follow orders. And it annoyed me a lot more this time around. I don't know why it didn't annoy me more the first time. But yeah, I was just like, Bashir, shut up, my guy, shut up. But I do still love them together. They're so cute. He is so sweet with her. And I really like in this one, there's a lot of conversation surrounding like that he's quite protective. He's just that type of person. He's like, you know, soldier, commander, leader, and he's a powerful mage also. And he's, you know, good with a sword and shit. He can fight. And he just has that protective nature in him. He wants to protect the people he cares about. And I think also has that more traditional like men protect women type of thing. And Aysel can take care of her damn self. And that's a whole thing with them of like, can you let me take care of shit myself? You can't just come, you know, barreling in every time I'm in trouble, panicking and freaking out and like causing a ruckus. You know, if I need you, I'll ask. But if I don't ask, don't jump in on my behalf. That's going to drive me nuts. Like, I don't want that or need that. and of like him trying to like prove that he can do that. Like, I swear I can't, because he just wants to be with her so bad. And I really liked that. But yeah, 3.75. Still very, very high for me, but in the series, I don't know if this one is my favorite now. Currently, on my reread, the first one is my favorite. And then last, but definitely not least, it's the highest rated one of these recent reads, The Blood-Dimmed Tide by Stephen Aryan. This is the sequel to The Judas Blossom. It's the Nightingale and the Falcon series. I always forget if it's Falcon and Nightingale or Nightingale and Falcon. It's Nightingale and Falcon. But yeah, the TLDR is just, holy crap, I had so much fun with this. I like could not put it down. I read it in 3 days. It's like 350 pages or something. And again, it takes me usually a book about this size. It could take me 6 to like 10 days to read, if not more. Like that's like average. I am obsessed with the Kozan. In the first book, they don't really come in until towards the end. And I remember that being my experience with the first book. I liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. The writing I thought was really good. And like the characterization, like the character development, I liked the world building. It's historical fantasy, so it is based somewhat in reality with like the events that happen and the characters. Some of the characters are like real people in history. And it's about the Mongol Empire coming into Persia, and Stephen Aryan is Persian. He's Iranian and modern day Iran. And yeah, so it's like we're following some characters that are part of the Mongol Empire. We're following some characters who are Persian rebels, etc., and they're kind of all intermingled here. And I liked the first book quite a bit. Again, I gave it 4 stars, but I wasn't like obsessed with any of the characters necessarily, and I would have rated it higher, even higher, but there was a little bit too much of like the battle sequences and more so like the military strategy aspect of it that's just not to my personal preference as a reader. Too much of that gets, like, I don't like if a book is categorized as just military fantasy. I'm like, ugh, no. If that's like the main thing, not gonna be a good time for me. But then towards the end, like the more fantastical elements like came out right towards the end, and we got introduced to the Kozan, and they're like magical people with special abilities. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm here for this. I'm so excited for this second book. And oh my God, we got so much more of the Kozan. And they give me Old Guard vibes. I have yet to read the graphic novels. I have them requested from the library right now, actually, because as I was reading this, I was like, I need to rewatch the Old Guard and I need to read the comics. It's very much, I don't want that to come across like I'm saying it's a copy and it's the exact same. It's not at all. It's not at all. The Old Guard, their abilities and like what they are, it's not the same in any way, shape, or form. And like what they do with these abilities and like everything, it's 0% the same thing. It just gives me that kind of vibe. It gives me a similar vibe. Near immortal people who have these special abilities to like manipulate time and stuff. So it's very much not the same. And it also kind of like Loki, the show Loki, kind of gives me like those vibes, like the timekeepers, all of this stuff. And I just love it so much. Oh my God. And I do really enjoy the characters. And I just think how he like weaves all of these things together. It's done in a way that it is a lot. Like there's a lot of like moving parts to this plot and they all do touch each other. They're interwoven, but he does it in a way that like, it's like, I know it is a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't feel overwhelming. I'm not confused and like, wait, who and what and how? It's just, it's very seamless. I don't know. I just ate this shit up. And also there's a lot more, as far as like the character development, we're getting a lot of like morally gray stuff happening, especially towards the end. There's one character in particular where once again, I'm just like, wait, I need the next book. I need it now. So yeah, this one I gave 4.75. And like, honestly, I'm like, 5? Maybe 5? I don't know. The only thing holding me back from giving it 5 right now is just that, like, the plot I enjoy and the characters I enjoy, but there's no characters that I, like, love and I'm obsessed with. And while I do enjoy the plot, I think I'm comparing it to other 5-star reads, too, which I know I need to stop doing that in general because they're different. You know what I mean? Like, they have different things. But I'm like, The Final Strife, the Ending Fire trilogy, right? Those first 2 books, like, the history that we're digging into and like secrets being revealed about the history and the lore of the world. Like there's not really that here, but that also makes sense because, you know, it's basically our world. It's real history, but with like this fantastical element kind of tied in. I don't know. I still might change it to 5 stars, honestly. I don't know. For now, 4.75, which if I were to round up, you know, on Amazon or whatever, it's going to be 5. So I'm 5 stars. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Like, what am I doing? I need to stop being so fucking stingy. It's 5 stars. I had a freaking blast with this. It was my cup of tea. It was my cup of tea. There we have it. That's all the books recently that I have read or DNF'd. I think they were all from September too. Yeah. Yep. If you've read any, let me know what your thoughts were, or if you're anticipating reading any of them or want to. Or of course, just leave an emoji if you want to say hello and make your presence known. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.